The coffee tasted sweeter than usual. I noticed it immediately, that subtle, almost syrupy aftertaste beneath the French roast Dad always bought from the specialty shop downtown. We were sitting in his kitchen on a Saturday morning, the same kitchen where I'd eaten breakfast for 18 years before college, before medical school, before everything changed. "You're not drinking," Dad observed, watching me over the rim of his own cup. "Just savoring it," I said, taking another sip. "It's been a while since we did this. 3 months, actually. 3 months since Mom's funeral, since the will reading, since I'd learned she'd left me her shares in the medical device company I didn't even know she'd invested in. 12% ownership in Cardiometrics, a manufacturer of cardiac monitoring equipment, with $340 million in annual revenue and contracts with Veterans Affairs hospitals across 6 states. Dad had been furious. Not about the shares themselves, but about what they represented. Mom's acknowledgement that I'd actually accomplished something, that my little medical career had value, that founding a surgical residency program at 32 years old meant I understood healthcare in ways his 40 years selling insurance never could. "We should talk about your business situation," Dad said, refilling his own cup, but not mine. "The company shares your mother left you." "Cardiometrics," I said. "I've been reviewing their operations. The technology is solid, but their distribution model needs work. That's what I want to discuss." He leaned back, relaxed. "You're a doctor, not a businessman. Managing medical device manufacturing, dealing with FDA regulations, government contracts, it's beyond your expertise." I'd heard variations of this speech my entire life. Medicine was beyond my capabilities until I finished my residency. Chief of surgery was too ambitious until I was appointed at 31. Building a cardiac program was unrealistic until we performed our 200th successful procedure. "I've been consulting with their executive team," I said. "The board wants to expand into remote monitoring systems. I have some ideas about integration with hospital networks." "That's exactly my point." Dad's voice hardened slightly. "You're playing businessman when you should focus on surgery. These shares are a distraction you can't afford. Mom thought I could handle it. Your mother had terminal cancer when she made those decisions. She wasn't thinking clearly." The words hung between us, ugly and cruel. I set down my cup. "I should go," I said, standing. That's when my throat started closing. It began as a tightness, like I'd swallowed something too large. Then my heart began racing. Not the elevated pulse of anger or anxiety, but a galloping, irregular rhythm that made my vision blur. I grabbed the edge of the table. "Dad." "Sit down, Michael," he said calmly. "We're not finished discussing this." My legs gave out. I collapsed back into the chair, gasping. The tightness in my throat was spreading to my chest. My hands started trembling, then convulsing. Medical training kicked in through the panic. Tachycardia, respiratory distress, neurological symptoms. Poisoning. "What did you—" I couldn't finish the sentence. My tongue felt thick, unresponsive. Dad watched me with the same expression he'd worn when I told him I was going to medical school instead of taking over his insurance agency. Disappointed. Resigned. Certain I was making a mistake. "Dead people don't own companies," he said quietly. "Your mother should have left those shares to me. I would have known what to do with them. But since she didn't, I'm correcting her error." He was going to let me die. Right here in his kitchen, watching calmly over his coffee while I suffocated. I tried to reach for my phone, but my hands wouldn't cooperate. The convulsions were getting worse. I slid sideways off the chair, hitting the linoleum hard. The impact drove what little air remained from my lungs. Dad stood, looking down at me. "I researched antifreeze poisoning. You've got maybe 6 hours before complete kidney failure. The symptoms look like a heart attack or stroke. Natural causes for someone with your stress levels." He paused. "I'm sorry it came to this, but you've always been stubborn." Through dimming vision, I saw him walk to the sink, rinse his coffee cup, place it carefully in the dishwasher. Methodical, planned. My chest was on fire. I couldn't draw breath. This was how it ended. Poisoned by my own father in the kitchen, where he'd made me birthday pancakes, helped with homework, taught me to tie a necktie. Darkness was creeping in from the edges when I heard the front door crash open. Stephen, you home? Mrs. Patterson's voice. Our neighbor. Your sprinkler's been running for 2 hours, flooding my— oh my God. Footsteps running. Her face appearing above me, phone already out. I need an ambulance. 847 Oakwood Drive. Young man, unconscious, convulsing, yes he's breathing but barely. Dad's voice, smooth and concerned. He just collapsed. I was about to call. He's been under so much stress since his mother. Don't touch him, Mrs. Patterson snapped. Something's wrong. His lips are— is that cyanosis? And his breath smells sweet, like— The paramedics arrived in 4 minutes. I knew because I counted the seconds between heartbeats, focusing on staying conscious, on breathing, on surviving. Male, early 30s, severe respiratory distress, the first paramedic announced, checking my vitals. Pulse 156, and irregular, BP 180, over 110, pupils dilated. Jerry, his breath. I smell it, the second paramedic said. Sweet, chemical, possible toxic ingestion. They had me on a gurney within 90 seconds. I felt the needle slide into my arm, heard the crackle of the radio. En route with possible poisoning victim. Male, 32, altered mental status, tachycardia, respiratory compromise, sweet-smelling breath, suggests ethylene glycol, drawing blood for immediate tox screen. The ambulance lurched forward. Through my fading consciousness, I heard Dad's voice speaking to Mrs. Patterson. I have no idea what happened. We were just having coffee. The ER at Presbyterian was controlled chaos. I'd trained here during my residency, knew half the staff by name. Dr. Lisa Washington took one look at me and started firing orders. Ethylene glycol protocol. I want from Epizoli AFI. Now and get nephrology down here. Draw a full metabolic panel, arterial blood gas, and send tox screen to the lab stat. Mark it urgent, possible intentional poisoning. The antidote burned going in. I tried to speak, to tell them what happened, but my throat wouldn't work. Don't talk, doctor, Washington said, her hand on my shoulder. Michael, can you hear me? Blink twice if you understand. I blinked twice. Good, you're going to be okay. We got to you fast. The paramedics were smart. They recognized it immediately. She paused. Your father said you collapsed during breakfast. Is that accurate? I blinked twice again. Did you ingest something? Something he gave you? 2 blinks. Her expression changed. The coffee. 2 blinks. She stepped away, spoke quietly to a nurse. Within minutes, a police officer was standing by my bed. The toxicology report came back in 47 minutes. I watched the numbers on the monitor. My physician brain cataloging the crisis my body was fighting. Severe metabolic acidosis. Acute kidney injury beginning. Cardiac arrhythmia. Another hour without treatment, and I'd have been in complete renal failure. Dr. Washington returned with 2 people I didn't recognize. A woman in a dark suit, and a man with a federal badge, clipped to his belt. Dr. Reeves, the woman said. I'm Special Agent Patricia Morrison, FBI. This is Agent James Torres. Your toxicology results showed ethylene glycol, at levels consistent with intentional poisoning. The hospital flagged it immediately, due to federal protocols. Federal protocols. The phrase cut through my medication haze. Cardiometrics held contracts with VA hospitals. Any attack on ownership or leadership triggered automatic federal investigation. Industrial espionage safeguards I'd read about in the board briefings. Your father is being detained for questioning, Agent Morrison continued. But we need to understand the full scope here. You're listed as a 12% shareholder in Cardiometrics Medical Technologies. Is that correct? I managed a hoarse whisper. Yes, and your father knew about this ownership. Found out 3 months ago. Mom's will. Agent Torres made notes. Cardiometrics holds federal contracts worth $86 million annually. They manufacture cardiac monitoring equipment for VA hospitals and military medical facilities. Any threat to company leadership triggers our involvement. He paused. Your near death would have created serious complications for those contracts. More than that, a new voice said. I turned my head, difficult with the IV lines and monitoring equipment, and saw Richard Moss, Cardiometrics CEO, entering with hospital security. Michael isn't just a shareholder. As of last week, the board voted to appoint him Chief Medical Officer, effective immediately. Agent Morrison's expression sharpened. So the victim's father attempted to murder someone who was about to assume a senior executive role in a federal contractor company. Correct, Moss said. We'd planned to announce it Monday. Michael's expertise in cardiac surgery, combined with his research in remote monitoring systems, made him uniquely qualified. We're developing next-generation telemetry for deployed military personnel. He looked at me. I'm sorry, Michael. We should have provided security training, should have anticipated. How would he know? I whispered. I haven't told anyone. Your father didn't know about the CMO position. Agent Torres confirmed. He just knew about the shares from the will. But even that was enough to trigger this. The morphine was making everything soft and distant, but I forced myself to focus. The coffee. He made it before I arrived. Specific cup. He didn't drink from it. We've secured the residence. Agent Morrison said. Crime scene team is processing everything. The antifreeze container was still in his garage. Recent purchase, matches the chemical signature. She paused. Dr. Reeves. I need to ask, did your father make any statements before or during the poisoning? He said. I had to stop, gather strength. He said dead people don't own companies. That mom should have left the shares to him. That he was correcting her error. The agents exchanged glances. That's premeditation, Torres said. Not heat of passion, not impulsive, calculated murder for financial gain. Over the next 6 hours, as the foam pibsol fought the poison in my system, and dialysis filtered my blood, the investigation expanded. I learned this in fragments, through conversations I overheard, updates from Agent Morrison. Between my treatment cycle, 8 federal agents were ultimately assigned to the case. FBI, for the attempted murder, Defense Criminal Investigative Service. Because of the military contracts, Virginia Office of Inspector General for the federal healthcare angle, and FDA because cardiometrics devices fell under their regulatory authority. Any disruption to the company's leadership required immediate investigation to ensure continuity of critical medical supply chains. Dad had bought the antifreeze 2 weeks earlier, paid cash, driven to a hardware store 40 miles away. Security footage showed him making the purchase. His internet history revealed searches for antifreeze poisoning symptoms, inheritance laws when child dies, and corporate succession for shareholders. He'd planned it methodically. Wait until we'd reconciled enough for me to accept a breakfast invitation. Poison the coffee. Let me die of apparent cardiac arrest. Believable for a cardiac surgeon, working 80-hour weeks. Claim the shares through inheritance. Either sell them immediately, or leverage them for a board position he'd never earned. What he hadn't known, felons can't inherit from their victims. Murder disqualifies inheritance in every state. Even if I'd died, the shares would have passed to the charitable trust Mom had established as the secondary beneficiary. He'd committed murder for nothing. By Sunday evening, my kidney function had stabilized. I'd need ongoing monitoring for months, possibly years. The nephrologist warned about potential long-term damage, chronic kidney disease, increased cardiovascular risk. The poison would leave permanent marks. Agent Morrison visited Monday morning with updates. Your father confessed, she said. Not remorse strategy. His attorney convinced him the evidence was overwhelming. Premeditated attempted murder. The federal contract complications elevate it significantly. She paused. He's looking at 25 years minimum. He's 63, I said. The numbers were automatic, clinical. He'll die in prison. Yes, I should have felt something. Grief, anger, vindication. Instead there was just emptiness. The man who'd raised me, who'd taught me to ride a bike and throw a baseball, had calmly prepared poisoned coffee and watched me convulse on his kitchen floor. The cardiometrics board wants to postpone your CMO appointment, Agent Morrison continued. Give you time to recover. They're offering full medical support, whatever you need. No, I said. I start Monday as planned. She raised an eyebrow. You nearly died 3 days ago. Which is exactly why I need to start immediately. I shifted in the hospital bed, every movement sending aches through my poisoned muscles. My father tried to kill me, because he thought I was playing at business, that I didn't deserve what mom gave me. The best response to that is proving him catastrophically wrong. Agent Morrison smiled slightly. Understood. I'll inform the board. She turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, Dr. Reeves, your mother's investment wasn't just about the shares. I spoke with her attorney. She told him you were the only family member who understood that healthcare was about saving lives, not making money. She trusted you to keep the company focused on its mission. After she left, I lay in the quiet hospital room, listening to the cardiac monitor's steady beep. The same technology Cardiometrics manufactured. The same equipment that had tracked my poisoned heart's desperate rhythm, and helped the medical team save my life. Dad had tried to steal a company, whose products had ultimately saved me. The irony was perfect. My phone buzzed, Richard Moss texting an update. The board had voted to accelerate the new telemetry project. Military field trials, beginning in 8 weeks. My research on integration protocols would be the foundation. I closed my eyes, let the exhaustion take me. When I woke, there would be work to do. Kidney function tests, dialysis schedules, physical therapy. Recovery from attempted murder took time. But I was alive. The company was intact. And my father was learning that dead people don't own companies. But attempted murderers don't inherit them either.